Hey guys, Shift 83 here. I wanted to let everyone know I am releasing the actual 838 PEB pre-buy, pre-order, and I'll be lighting it up today, which is August 15th at some time. But I wanted to make a quick video of the ordering process since my e-commerce solution has changed, gone to a new platform, as well as a new hosting provider, which is lizardhill.com. They're actually hosting my website that you see right now, as well as the store. So let's go ahead and get into it because I wanted to really explain the different options based on when I did this for the IDE card. It had quite a few options. So does the 838 PEB, and it tended to confuse some people. So hopefully this will limit the amount of confusion. So the first thing you do is, of course, you go to my website, www.shift838.com. The next thing you will do is you will go to the store right here. It says 838 store. Click on that. Takes you directly to the new store. I've only put a few products up right now. This, of course, is what we're going to be talking about, the 838 PEB PCB. So let's go ahead and click it. It'll take you right to it. And as you can see over here, there is quite a few options to choose from, hence this video. So the base price for this board, as it is quite large, is $75 for the base price. As I said, this does fit in an ATX PC case, mid tower or higher. That's the reason it's large. So we have option one right here, assembled and tested. You say no, all you get is a PCB. That's it. You don't get anything. You don't get any of the components to populate it, nothing. If you want it assembled, I will assemble it for you and test it for an additional $85. I will most likely add a DIY kit in here. I'm not sure how much it will be, but it's not going to be that much less than the $85, just simply because some of these components are fairly pricey. I mean, just for these 8 card slots that I have here, the connectors that I have found that are readily available are not real cheap. So they're, I don't know, 550, 650 each, something like that. And there isn't a price break unless I buy at least 100 of them. So then, of course, you have the other pieces of components. So next is selection of the mid-tower case, if you want one or not. If you select it, it'll add the additional $90 to your bill. Now the case is this case that I'm using. This is a mid-tower case. It does have 2 front USB 3.0 ports that can be used. There is a connector on the board for them. They can supply power as well as the data lines to each of the ports if you're using the micro Gotex or something else that requires USB that you could be using. This particular case does not come with a power supply, of course, like most ATX cases do not. I mean, so this has 3 external 5.25 bays, as well as 1 external 3.5-inch bay. Then you have multiple 3.5-inch bays underneath that external that are for internal bays. And of course, you have your momentary PC power switch, as well as your momentary reset switch, your power LEDs up there, all that kind of stuff. So your next option is your ATX power supply. Well, I actually skipped the 3D printed rail guards. So if you want to guide your PEB cards correctly and make sure they stay in, then this needs to be ordered, or you can print your own. I will supply a link to the STL files. That's not a problem. These actually mount directly to standoffs that are already mounted in the case. That way it actually stabilizes all your cards. These are of a modular design, so you have a front rail and a back rail system. They consist of the rail itself and a left and a right bracket. And the brackets actually have brass inserts for the screws. So if you choose for me to print them, I'll print them for you. Otherwise, I'll tell you which bracket or which inserts I used, and they're just M3 screws. So now let's go ahead and jump to the power supply, since I've already covered the mid-tower case. Power supply is a 450 watt ATX 24-pin power supply. And I look for a few power supplies that had these, or had what I was looking for, and it was a little bit more expensive than the others, simply because of these connectors. So I was looking for an ATX power supply that had more of your standard 4-pin large Molex connectors that you would use for like a 5 1/4 inch drive, or a full-size hard drive, whether it be IDE or SCSI or MFM, whatever. So I was looking for something that would do that. So I found a couple of power supplies, and this one had a real good rating. The other reason I've chosen this particular power supply is the 5-volt standby is a 2.5 amp 5-volt standby. That means if you're using a Tippy, you have your Raspberry Pi 3B or 3B plus or lower mounted actually onto the Tippy PEB card. You can actually use a cable that goes from my 5-volt standby USB on the board directly to the Raspberry Pi, and you can power it with no problems. And that's the reason I chose this one. That's how I'm doing it. So that's for the ATX power supply. For the 838 latching relay module, if you add this, then you will get, and in fact, let me show it to you. You'll get one of these. This actually plugs in on the board. And what this does is it turns your momentary power switch that comes on all PC cases, because it's not latching, into a latching switch. So it will constantly pulse a signal down to that ground line from the ATX power supply to make it think that you have a latching switch. It's always turned up. You press it again, it turns off. It's not a real complex circuit. It is all surface mount for me to get it to fit how I want it to fit and to have enough clearance. So if you need one of these and don't want to replace your current power switch that you have, or if you get the case from me, you don't want to replace that power switch, you will need this, because there's no other way to keep it engaged unless you hold it down and tape it or something like that. So the drive select board, and I got one of these here. They won't come in purple. This is one of the original ones I had before I released them for production, right? All this is it's designed for 3.5-inch floppy drives, because a lot of the 3.5-inch floppy drives do not have drive select jumpers for you to be able to select drive 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, one thing to remember is if you have 2 drives, you actually, and both of them are 3.5s, and they don't have the drive select jumper, then you actually only need one of these, because DSK2 or drive B, whatever you want to call it, is defaulted with a straight cable. So if you just have a straight 34-pin cable, you haven't hacked the cable at all, the drive you hook up that's straight through is going to be DSK2. This is needed for DSK 1, 3, and 4. Remember, you can only use 4 if your disk controller allows it. TI disk controller only allows 3. So when I have options on here where you can add 1, 2, or 3 if you decide to go, that route. So for the 838 IO Plus card, so I have options for the blank PEB card, which is just an empty PEB card. That's it. You go out and get the components, and of course I'll let everyone know what they are. They're actually written or silk screened on top of the board, so everyone knows. Nothing's being hidden there. You have another one for a do-it-yourself kit. So it's PEB card plus the components. I send it all to you. You solder it in place. We also have one that's assembled PEB card only. And that is one of those. This one is actually quite a bit, or is actually a few inches shorter this way for the ATX case. This way you can actually snake the cable in through the big hole in the back of the PC case that you would normally have your display ports and your USB and keyboard and all that kind of stuff, and have plenty of room to plug it in here so you could use your existing 838 IOP cable that you have. Now remember, that's only half of the board that you need to communicate with the 838 PEB. The other half, this is the one that plugs in on the side port of the 994A. All this replaces the TI-99 Flex cable interface card. Now on top of this card, you can also have a 32K module where you can actually remove your 32K memory card out of the peripheral expansion box. You no longer need it. But on top of that, I also have the 838 IO Plus ATX, the PEB, and side card with components that's do-it-yourself kit. You build it all. I send you the components, you build it. Now remember, the PEB version piece of the card is all through-hole components. However, the side port piece of the card is not. That is surface mount. So if you're not comfortable with surface mount, don't do it. But it's completely up to you. They are not hard. I have a couple of videos that shows the surface mount soldering that I've done. I try to choose components that are, even though they're surface mount, they can easily be soldered with a regular soldering iron, not a really small tip. So the other piece that I have on here for 140 is you get the IO Plus ATX PEB board as well as the side card, and it's all assembled and tested. The next piece is the actual cable. So you have a few options. You can say, no, I'm going to make the cable myself. I've already published the actual pinouts on what I do, the type of cable that you require to use, because it does take a special certain type of cable. It has to be a dual shielded, twisted, paired cable. So I sell them assembled 4 feet for 35, 5 feet for 40. Now, since you're having to snake that cable in through where it says this Geneve keyboard video breakout board, snakes in through here, and typically I have mine plugged into slot 1 here, and it just connects right into it. So I don't recommend really anything less than a 4 feet. I have 5 feet running. I have not certified anything longer than 5 feet, and I'm not going to. If someone else wants to try to make a 5.5, 6 foot, y'all can go ahead and try that, but I'm not going to certify that. So the next piece is the actual 3D case for the IOP. This is the external case for the side port piece of the IO Plus card. It's going to be, it's a smooth case. It has an option if you choose to get the 32K within the option, which I thought I had it added in here, but I don't. I will add that. So there is an option that will be here for the 8 through 8. Oh, there it is. I did add it. Okay. You can see I even confused myself with so many options. So the 3D case, you get that. You'll be able to mount the actual side port piece of the 838 IO Plus card into a 3D case, plug that directly into the side of your 994A, and it's ready to go. You just have to plug the cable between the PEB card and the side port card, and you're ready to go. So, but if you want to print your own case, I've already provided the files. I already have links to them. You are welcome to print them yourself. They do take a while to print, I will tell you that. I think it takes close to, I want to say, 8 hours to print the total case, maybe longer. I don't remember now. The 838 32K card. This is kind of like a dual function 32K card. It can be used for two different things. You know, people can use it to, if they just want to plug 32K on the side of their actual 994A and they don't have any other expansion whatsoever. But I've also included connections in here where you can actually plug it directly on top of the board here. And I've got one. And it is surface mount. So I've got an extra long header that goes through from it's female down to male. It's extra long, and it allows you to be able to plug it in. And then this is basically going to be used for an expansion port for another card I'm working on. And this actually has the on-off switch on it. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's right here. So you can actually turn the 32K on and off if you have a different, if you're trying to test a different memory card or something like that. So you can add that. I'll do a do-it-yourself kit as well, but surface mount again, or a complete assembled and tested 32K. So the next piece here is for our Geneve users. One of the Geneve users, Insane Multitasker, asked me if I was actually, or how I was going to be hooking up Geneve video and audio and keyboard and stuff like that, since all those connections are actually on the back part of the Geneve board itself. So I come up with this little solution, and you can actually see this is not the final board. It's the one that's used right now. I am going to change it a little bit. These ones that are vertical, that are round, are actually going to be the same as these. They're just going to flip over and you'll plug in from this back side over here. But otherwise, all this is a breakout board, pretty much. So you take your keyboard, 5-pin, it's a 5-pin DIN, and you'll plug that over here, and here's your keyboard that comes out of the back piece of that unit. Same thing with your video and audio. So your video actually will plug into here. It'll go to this video. It will also, in audio, it'll also go to this video here. So let me explain that. So this is just a DV9. So, and these things are just going in connected pin 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, things like that. This is for the GVS VGA unit of mine that allows you to hook a Geneve up to a newer VGA monitor via a GVS 8200 or 8220, either one. All it is requires a 9-pin D-sub connector with a ribbon cable, mount it to a PC slot bracket, and slap it in one of the slots. That's it. Then you can hook the GBS up that way. This is the audio breakout here, so you can hook up a pair of audio high power, or not high powered, powered audio speakers, and the audio from here is ported over here, and you got one audio signal, but it's going both left and right. So if you add that, you can get you don't have to add it, but if you add it, you have a couple of different options. You have it says SMD. These are not SMD components. I'll go change that. So I'll add the components and the board. You can solder it all up for yourself, or for an additional $5, I'll do it for you. This micro USB cable you can add if you just want to include it. You don't have to. Most of us got plenty of these laying around. This is strictly for what I use for the 5-volt USB standby power to power up my Raspberry. That way you have no extra power cables coming out, and you don't have to run them if you don't want to through the case. You can just plug it in directly here. Of course, you also have an option of this here. So, this is your 5-volt USB standby power. It will provide 2.5 amps if you get the power supply from me. If you have power supplies laying around, just check them. Make sure your 5-volt standby is at least 2.5 amps. I've seen a lot of them, they're only 2. But this USB here is actually directly connected pin 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4 directly to this. There's no power or ground shared from the ATX power supply or the board itself. This is strictly just to plug in a Raspberry Pi or power, wall power adapter, whatever you need to do directly here, usually with an adapter, and then from here over to the Pi if you need to. But otherwise, I hope this has further explained a little bit of what the ordering is going to be. If you still have any questions, feel free to drop me a line, a contact form on my website, or hit me up at Atari Age, and I will answer everything I can for you. Thanks for watching.